Hi, and welcome to Yozzo's podcast, dedicated to empowering mobile virtual network operators with the insights they need to succeed. This is the place where we break down the complexities of the MVNO ecosystem. Let's get started.
All right, today we're going to talk about a revolution, one that you've probably never even heard of. But it happened right in the palm of your hand, and it completely flipped the entire mobile industry on its head. It's the story of how a few smart rule changes, and some even smarter companies, completely broke open a closed system and gave us all the choices and prices we expect today. I mean, really think about it for a second. Why do you have so many choices for your phone plan? You can get one from your cable company, a big box store, or from dozens of online brands. It feels normal now, but it definitely wasn't always this way. The answer is tucked away in a concept that quietly rewired everything. And that answer is the MVNO. It stands for Mobile Virtual Network Operator. So what is it? Simply put, it's a mobile company that doesn't actually own any of the cell towers or physical network stuff. They're basically renters. The big network owners are the landlords with the building, and the MVNOs just lease some space on their network and sell it directly to you, but with their own branding, plans, and prices. A simple idea, right? But with absolutely massive consequences. To really get just how revolutionary this was, we've got to jump in a time machine. We need to go back to a world where choice wasn't really a thing. Before the late 90s, in most countries, you only had maybe 2 or 3 options for a mobile phone plan, and these were usually huge old-school companies, often with ties to the government. With no real competition, they had zero reason to lower prices or come up with cool new features. You wanted a mobile phone? You paid what they told you to pay. End of story. So what broke the dam? How did we get from that locked-down system to the wide-open market we have now? Well, the whole thing started with a single piece of legislation in Europe. This was the spark that lit the whole fuse. And this is it. It looks pretty boring, right? Directive 95/62/EC. But don't let the name fool you. This document was basically a stick of dynamite tossed into the cozy world of the telecom monopolies. It laid down the law that would force them to open up their networks. And this directive was super specific. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a mandate called Open Network Provision. It meant the big, dominant network owners were now legally required to let other companies access their infrastructure. And no funny business either. The access had to be fair, transparent, and you couldn't discriminate. With a hard deadline of January 1st, 1998, the clock was officially ticking. Now, a law is just words on paper until somebody actually decides to test it. And the first pioneers to step up and challenge the giants, well, they were in for one heck of a fight. Meet Sense Communications, a Norwegian company. They were the first ones to really try and use this new law, and it was a total roller coaster. They'd win a legal battle, then get shut down by another regulator. The big networks fought them tooth and nail until Sense eventually went under in '99. They did come back a year later, but man, that first battle was absolutely brutal. The whole legal war came down to this kind of nerdy but totally critical distinction. Sense wanted what's called interconnection, which would let them be a real independent competitor with their own SIM cards and everything. But the big guys argued, no, all they're doing is roaming, which would keep all the control and power in their hands. The regulators couldn't agree, and that confusion is really what killed Sense's first attempt. But while Sense was slugging it out in the legal trenches in Scandinavia, a totally different kind of company was about to blow the whole game wide open from a completely different direction. And this was the moment. November 11th, 1999, Virgin Mobile launches in the UK. This is it, the birth of the world's first truly successful MVNO. They didn't just try to get a foot in the door, they kicked it down and built a massive business in a huge market. You can hear their whole strategy right here in this quote from Richard Branson. Simplicity. No more confusing plans and hidden fees. Just one single simple tariff. They knew their weapon wasn't going to be technology. It was going to be their brand's reputation for being fair and easy to understand. So what was their secret sauce? First, they took a famous, trusted brand from a totally different industry and dropped it into this stale telecom world. Then, they found a network partner who was willing to play ball. And they focused like a laser on simple, honest pricing. What Virgin really did was prove that you didn't have to be a telecom insider to win in the mobile business. So, Virgin proved it could be done. They cracked the door open. But it was in Denmark where a couple of scrappy startups basically took that door off its hinges and perfected a new, super efficient way of doing things. And the results were, well, look at this. It was a market earthquake. By the end of 2003, the big old network owners in Denmark were actually losing customers. Meanwhile, the new virtual operators saw their customer base grow by a staggering 74%. That's not just competition. That's a hostile takeover of market growth. So how on earth did they do it? A company called Telmore basically wrote the playbook. They were a lean machine. Everything was online, so they didn't need expensive retail stores. They started with just 20 people. And they didn't get into the messy business of subsidizing phones. This meant their costs were tiny compared to the big guys, and they passed all those savings right on to their customers. And did this model work? Oh yeah. In just 3 years, this tiny online startup, Telmore, managed to capture 9% of the entire Danish mobile market. They went from nothing to a major force almost overnight. And here's the best part of the story. The country's biggest network, TDC, the very landlord that Telmore was renting from, was so blown away by their success that they just bought them for 400 million Danish kroner. It was the ultimate, if you can't beat 'em, buy 'em moment, and it completely proved that the MVNO model was here to stay. So what began as a legal fight in Scandinavia and a cool marketing play in the UK, it didn't stay there. It went global, and it went global fast. And I mean, it exploded. By 2018, you had over 1,300 of these virtual operators in 80 different countries. This wasn't some niche idea anymore. It had become a massive $84 billion global market, and it all grew from that one European directive. And you can see the impact everywhere. Just look at Denmark, where the whole lean model was perfected. Virtual operators have over a third of the entire market. And it's not just a small country thing. In huge economies like Germany and the UK, they've got massive chunks of the pie too, proving this model works anywhere. So let's bring this all home. Why does any of this matter to you and the phone in your pocket? It's simple. This whole revolution injected real, fierce competition into the market. That drove prices down by as much as 50% in those early Danish days. It created the insane amount of choice you have today, and it forced everyone, big and small, to actually innovate to earn your business.
And that wraps up another episode of Yozzo's podcast. If you want to dive deeper into today's topic, you can find much more resources at yozzo.com. We'll be back next time with more insights. Until then, keep innovating.